this, so you can rant all you want about Donald Trump. I'd like to hear the Liberal Democrats criticise the mullahs.
Let me listen. I was one of those soldiers in Afghanistan who was being shot at by militias that were sponsored by Iran, so don't lecture me on that.
What happens when a politician with strong opinions on the military finds himself debating someone who actually served in the British Army? That's exactly what you're about to see. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In this exchange, Mark Francois takes on a former British Army officer in a discussion that quickly becomes rather revealing. Francois comes into the conversation with confidence, but facing someone with direct military experience creates a very different dynamic, and that's what makes this clip worth watching. When political arguments about defence and military service meet first-hand experience, the talking points can suddenly face a much tougher test. So let's watch the exchange and see how it unfolds.
Mike.
Look, I actually want to reframe this. There's no military solution that opens up the Straits of Hormuz. What we're talking about is Iran, which has hundreds of miles of coastline along there, holding at risk civilian shipping, which has no armaments. It's doing that through a variety of methods like drones, subsurface drones, missiles, fast boats, rubber dinghies, you name it, they've got it. And there is no, short of ground troops, which we're not going to do, there's no military solution to that problem.
I disagree.
You can't Mark, let's talk about your intelligence then about the destroyer as well, because I sit on the Defence Select Committee. There wasn't a destroyer, so I'm very surprised to hear that the Navy was.
The question is, why not?
Because the fleet is only 6 destroyers and 3 of them are in deep maintenance. So the big story here actually is there is no UK military capability. The Prime Minister doesn't have options. And while we're on minesweepers, Mark, the reason we don't have any of those is because the Tories cut them by 50% when they were in government. So across the board, UK military capability is cut to the bone, and the Prime Minister does not have options when it comes to things like this. And the story that we've had with Iran, should we be with America or against America? It's actually kind of irrelevant, because we are not able to bring assets to bear on the problem.
I have to say that I do not believe that the UK should be involved in an illegal war, full stop.
I agree.
And whether we have capabilities or not,
totally agree.
It's an illegal war.
Totally agree.
We agree.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're miles apart on the political spectrum, right? Sure. But this is an illegal war.
It's an illegal war.
It's a war where there's no clear strategic end state. So this idea that you're going to kind of throw assets at it, bomb some stuff. I mean, the glorification that the Americans, these memes and the videos glorifying in violence. Like I've fought in wars. That's disgusting. You don't glorify the death and destruction of your enemies.
Wait a minute.
Absolutely disgusting.
Let's have the other side to this. Iran, we now know, was behind the October the 7th attack. Iran told Hamas to do it. So that's not exactly a pro-Iranian point. The Iranians, Mike, you know this, for many years, for decades, advised our opponents in Iraq and Afghanistan on the technology for improvised explosive devices, for IEDs. Hundreds of British soldiers were killed. Thousands were maimed in those 2 theatres of operations with the use of Iranian-supplied technology. These are not Boy Scouts. These are murdering mullahs, and you will never have long-term peace in the Middle East while the mullahs control Iran. These are some inconvenient truths.
Well, let me respond to these truths.
Well, hang on. I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished. But they are also, I'm afraid, true. And it's the same regime that has murdered 20,000 Iranian civilians since Christmas. Some people say 30,000. For having the temerity to protest on the streets that they wanted to live in a free country. So there's another side to this. So you can rant all you want about Donald Trump. I'd like to hear the Liberal Democrats criticise the mullahs.
Let me listen. I was one of those soldiers in Afghanistan who was being shot at by militias that were sponsored by Iran. So don't lecture me on that.
I'm not lecturing you. I'm just pointing out the facts.
And this is not about is the Iranian regime a despicable regime. Obviously, it is.
So what are we going to do about it?
Nobody's disputing that. Mark, as a former minister, I would expect you to know better that when there's problems, you don't always do something about them, because sometimes the choices are deeply unpalatable. Just because there's a problem doesn't mean you have to deal with it.
So we let them carry on murdering 20,000 of their own people.
Do you know
and we
what
go
the outcome?
Tut-tut.
Do you know what? It's not about saying tut-tut. The outcome of this is going to be, mark my words, the Americans are desperately looking for an off-ramp. Okay, there is no solution. The chief, the supreme leader's son, has now taken over and gone to ground.
Well,
right?
we think so.
The Iranian regime does not look very close
We don't know
to
whether he's alive or dead. Yeah.
Right, and so the Americans have realised there's no military solution. They can't bomb the Iranian regime, and if they do, that's a terrible, terrible idea, because there's 600 kilograms of enriched uranium dispersed around Iran that would fall into regional warlord militias' hands. Right, so there's no military solution for the Americans.
Tell that to someone who lives in Israel.
The Iranians,
who've been under Iranian missile fire for years.
Mark, I'm not disputing any of those points. The thing I'm disputing is the solution to those things to launch an illegal war that, in the end, the Americans have to pull back from?
I don't believe it was illegal.
But, well,
we have to differ.
We'll differ, but I'm not Lord Hermer. I'm not a human rights
Iran in the way they've tried to flatten Gaza. You just can't. That's not realistic. And it was an illegal war.
Let's just finish off this section, because, you've, many people's views, rightly said, well, we should be doing something on the Strait of Hormuz. But the fact is, as Mike explained, we haven't got the wherewithal to do that. And that is because our Navy has been decimated by cuts under a government that you were once a defence minister.
Well, we still got a number of mine hunters. We still had a number of mine hunters in theatre when we left government. Labour, as I said, because they have brought in £2.6 billion of in-year savings, because the Treasury have forced them upon them, brought the last one of those home in January. Do we still have a mine hunting capability? Yes. We haven't decided to deploy it yet. I'm not as defeatist as Mike.
The Iranians would sink a mine hunter with a drone or a missile, Mark. Come on.
It's so one-dimensional
about military threat. Sorry.
It's a threat coming from multiple
We have three people speaking at once for more than about 5 seconds.
Look.
So should we go to a break? Because we're coming back to